E-commerce students, welcome to Chapter 7. Of course, we just got finished with a chapter on marketing online in general. We're going to dive a little deeper into social, mobile, and local marketing. These topics deserve a little bit further exploration simply because these are the hot areas in online marketing right now. We're going to be moving fast because a lot of the key concepts we already covered in Chapter 6. So what are we going to be diving into today? Well, first let's start off with what our objectives are. What we want to be able to do is really differentiate a little bit between some of the traditional online forms of marketing, things like search engine advertising, and with what is happening with social, local, and mobile. We're also going to be giving an overview. Now, you'll find when we get into the various social networks, to some extent, the process gets just a little repetitive, but we're going to be talking about how a basic online marketing campaign works and what the main elements are. We're also going to talk a lot about why location is so important these days. Let's start off with some context. What you're seeing illustrated here are methods of what we call geofencing. If you're not familiar with the term, what geofencing means is that you essentially are targeting people on their mobile devices based on their proximity to a given location. Let me give you an example how this works. Let's suppose all of us, for whatever reason, we're on the Route 376 around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the main expressway into Pittsburgh. It's surrounded by digital billboards. We're all carrying our smartphones in our cars with us. We're probably listening to streaming audio on our Bluetooth in our cars. These devices in real time are reporting out to advertising networks what our browsing history, social network history, all the things we've been doing on our phones, so that the billboards themselves have the best chance of coming up with advertising that will hit the greatest percentage of people who are driving based on how much advertisers have bid to get your attention. This is what we're talking about in terms of the convergence between mobile, social, and location-based marketing. It really sets the stage for what we're going to be talking about. So in terms of what we're talking about these days, there's a fantastic opportunity for engagement when it comes to mobile devices because we take them with us everywhere. They're generally the first thing we see in the morning and the last thing we see when we go to sleep at night. Some people wake up several times during the night and use them. I'm not saying that's healthy behavior. I'm saying that this particular device has kind of tied all three together between mobile, social, and location. And the idea that local advertising is now a part of this. So if we look at where the money is going right now we've got a lot of money going into mobile ads. We've got a lot of money going into local and social and location-based. This is going to be the next big thing. Our textbooks are always a little bit behind. I would bet that number is even higher for 2023 going into 2024 where we are now. Again, social marketing. The difference between social marketing and traditional marketing is social is all about engagement. Social is about getting people to talk about the brand, to identify with the brand, to want to talk about the brand and interact with other people who are just as interested. So it's also a great place for advertisers and for companies to know what people actually want. So in terms of who the big players are, again, it's going to be largely based around generations. I'm a Gen Xer. People who are older millennials and up love Facebook. At the time of publication of this video, over 3 billion users. Instagram, of course, an outgrowth of Facebook. Visual blogging, for example. And then we get into even more kinds of micro video types of apps such as TikTok and some of the more location-based. Snapchat was really the first one to really dive into location as the core element of its social network. And then, of course, we got players like Twitter, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. And again, it's all about engagement in terms of these. Facebook is still killing it, however. Even people who are not big fans of Facebook will still use it to keep up with their Gen X and above relatives and to use Marketplace. And then we've also got what we refer to as dark social. I don't mean to imply that's like the dark web, but it means that basically dark social is there are things we do that are not in the public eye, which is still sharing content which may have started on a social network. So again, how does the social marketing process work? This is with any of the social networks. This general framework works. Getting people to actually like you or follow you. Getting people to engage, to be a part of your conversation. Getting people to boost a post or for something to go viral. That's amplification. Finally, you're building a community, meaning people are coming back all the time, and that can lead to a strong brand. When I think of strong brands that people like to discuss online, you've heard in the last lecture, I'm all into Toyotas these days, but Toyota, Jeep, Nike, any of these brands that people like talking about are producing sales based on their social media presence. So how do we measure the results? Well, if you get fans, that's great. It's great to have followers. The real kind of important parts of this are the engagement and amplification part of this. Engagement means somebody's converted from just liking or following you to actually being a part of your crew per se. Amplification means when you put something out there, sharing it, they're retweeting it, and ultimately they are building this into a strong brand. Now, all of these social networks have their own analytics back ends on them, whether it's for example, Hootsuite, which can do multiple social platforms. There's also analytics built right into Facebook, for example, and there are lots of ways. Companies that are maintaining a number of social media presences are going to companies like Hootsuite to be able to manage it from all in one place. What we're going to look through here in terms of a Facebook marketing approach, it really isn't that much different when we get to other social networks. Facebook is kind of a legacy kind of approach that you've got a profile in terms of the user and the timeline, meaning what shows up in that user's feed every day, for example. When we go to all of these things, what this produces essentially is clickstream behavior. Facebook, however, was the first social network to come up with a reactions button, so people could like something, so people could love it, etc. And that really did change the way things were going. Things like stories and reels are attempts by Facebook to keep up with some of the emerging social networks like TikTok, for example, and Instagram, to seem like they are similar in terms of their instant types of content. And again, we've got Facebook, because of the time they've been around, because of their length of existence, they have had more time to build more information and deeper profiles than just about everybody. So again, the reaction button was what changed everything. In reality, Facebook is really not doing anything that much different than Google in the fact that advertising networks are populating ads in people's feeds based on the idea of where you're going online, based on your clickstream behavior. And Facebook Live also gave brand pages an additional way of engaging. In fact, it gave an additional way for everybody to engage and to do deeper sharing of their own life. So really a lot of game changers. Whether or not you're a Facebook user, these have influenced other social networks. So a basic Facebook campaign means you're creating a page and finding ways to draw people in. If you're doing Facebook ads, which are really cost effective in some measures, you can do sponsored ads for as little as $10, for example. And when you've really reached engagement, people are starting to create groups that refer back to your brand page, for example. Instagram is a similar concept. The biggest difference between Instagram and Facebook is the idea that Instagram is more visually oriented. And I think we saw an exodus of people from Facebook going more to Instagram largely between 2020 and 2024 because of so much of the political discussion and the pandemic discussion on Facebook. It was really tougher to do that on Instagram. I think a lot of people who were Facebook users saw this as a way to really get away from some of the political noise, for example. That being said, why is Instagram so successful? Well, it's so successful because it's a visual medium. It's a great way to market products. It's a great way to allow people to share their opinions in a visual way about the products that they're using. And again, it's not really that much different, other than some of the campaign, I shouldn't say, is not that much different, other than the way you display content. It's going to be primarily visual. You might use carousel ads to show different aspects, for example, and people can buy directly through Instagram, as we are seeing these days. And again, if we look at how we do this, not really any different in terms of the analytics, because you're still using the Meta Business Suite, which is, again, owned by Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook. Now, what does play a bigger role probably on Instagram than Facebook are influencers, mainly because it's a younger platform, tends to draw younger users, for example. So then we get into TikTok, and this is the big game changer in the last 2 years, and the fact that short video has become a thing, and more products are getting people who are not even employees or not even formal influencers to share their opinions on products, and those are going viral. And so the idea that you have a platform that is literally built around engagement with things like being able to stitch in other posts or even compare your post to somebody else whenever you are posting a TikTok, to be able to go in with somebody else. And so these have produced very entertaining and viral hits. Also, by the way, easy to share on other social network programs. And again, one of the biggest kind of controversies about TikTok is the fact it is owned by a Chinese company, and some people are concerned about the security of data. And again, we get into image and video types of ads are more successful on this platform. Same as any other kinds of marketing, except influencers are playing an even bigger role on this platform to get noticed, and short, concise content is king. We're going to talk briefly about Twitter. Twitter tended to be based around really steering people to other content, the idea of short tweets that would put people outside of Twitter. And so I'm still calling it Twitter, even though it's rebranded as X. I think that sort of sticks in my brain. It's hard for me to start calling this social network X. The social network itself tends to be geared more around sports and politics than commerce, but you can market to those markets as well. By having the right people retweet your post, for example. And so again, retweets are where it's at in terms of getting engagement. Not really much different here, just different ways of getting sponsored content. So again, you're seeing this gets very consistent, and it's not to say that this isn't important, but again, Twitter is also one of those social networks that by the next time I teach this class may be a very different place based on some of the changes that Elon Musk is making, for example. Then we get to Pinterest. Pinterest, I was actually really surprised that its market valuation was as high as it was when I looked it up today, because I really hadn't thought about Pinterest in a little while, but it really was kind of the prototype for what we call photo blogging. And so the idea of a visual social network that's ideal for showing products, things like fashion for folks, or even cars, motorcycles, guitars, anything that's visually oriented, although its user base is disproportionately female. And so the idea of masquerading as advertising, posts that seem like individual posts masquerading as advertising, was really part and parcel to the social network from the get-go. And again, same ideas apply, different names, but really what you're talking about is either sponsoring, a pin, or getting other people to repost it, to pin it on their boards and build engagement that way. And again, when we get into the kind of the ins and outs of it, it's really not that much different. You start the page, you grow engagement, you can see that framework plays out over and over again. Now, a couple other points to make. Snapchat, again, is one of the most location-based networks. One of the biggest things that people use with Snapchat, full disclosure, I'm not a regular Snapchat user, but Snapchat is based around location. And things like having sponsored lenses or geofilters, things that make you look different when you post on Snapchat based on where you're at and what you're doing. That's a tie-in with social and location-based e-commerce, and gives an opportunity for companies to build engagement by sponsoring these kinds of things. LinkedIn's a little different. I would say LinkedIn is maybe our most popular business-to-business social network. And again, yes, there's marketing that takes place on here, but it's more about networking. I think one of the mistakes people make, I will say this as a daily LinkedIn user, I think one of the mistakes companies make is by attempting hard sales and hard selling engagement before you actually know the person you're connected to. I also feel, and my personal advice for people using LinkedIn is to not connect with people who you would not recommend in real life, people who you would not refer to somebody you were working with, because your network reflects on you. But yes, companies use LinkedIn for recruiting. They use it for establishing some levels of marketing and business to business. But it is more, I would think, personal networking oriented. That being said, it's a powerful platform. I know whenever I did my doctoral research, I was able to get a lot of participants in my HR research by being a part of LinkedIn. So what's the downside of social media? I mean, social media is great in the fact we can get brand engagement, we get people excited about our products. In reality, what you lose is control. When Twitter first came out, Chevy was trying to promote their new Suburban, and they were asking people to retweet pictures of the Suburban, and it went sideways quickly. One of the ones I remember was "Screw the environment, I got mine," 13 miles per gallon. And McDonald's did much the same thing when they started their Twitter page. Essentially, somebody retweeted a picture of a Big Mac and with the hashtag diabetes. I'm loving it. So you really have to concentrate on controlling your message, and at some point you also are setting up a situation where people on social expect very quick feedback. That ties us into mobile, and we've already hit the mobile stats really hard in previous chapters. I will say this flat out, that it is the next great frontier because it ties in social and it ties in local, but it's also really challenging by the very nature. You got people who are moving from place to place, and to be able to know how to best message someone. You can see here that we are growing quickly, and I think that you're going to see that overtake desktop commerce in the near future. I would love it if the average student in my class were only using their device 4.5 hours a day. I've had students as high as 15 hours a day, but here's the interesting stat. Is that most of us are using these at home more than anywhere. Some people cannot use them at work, and the number one use is not productivity, it's for entertainment, whether we're watching videos, playing on social networks, etc. And we have more and more people online all the time. And so people tend to use the same apps repeatedly, and it's amazing how many folks will opt for the free version to be able to not have to pay for it, even if they're small payments. It's a great opportunity for very targeted marketing. And again, if you know what somebody is downloading and what they're using, you can very quickly tie them to a profile. We are, as mentioned in the last chapter, we are using multiple devices at the same time. I think most people, for example, are watching television. If they're watching streaming, which isn't even broadcast television anymore, they also might be shopping on their smartphone at the same time. And I know I'm one of those folks. Sometimes when I'm on the elliptical at the gym, I'll do some research on a product, might even have it in my cart, and I might not purchase it till I look at it on my desktop when I get home. So you've got to have consistent branding and a consistent process throughout how people interact with your company. So mobile is a big deal. And Google knew what they were doing in the early 2000s when they came out with Google Maps, because Google Maps ties seamlessly into their search engine. And the idea of mobile search, I'm driving and I need to find some place to stop and get gas or to eat. This is where location-based marketing ties in to mobile marketing. And so, again, we've got all of these features. There's not, to my knowledge, a phone made today that's not GPS capable. So yeah, is your phone tracking you? Yes, probably, unless you change the default settings. We're getting into more and more advanced devices all the time. The next frontier is going to be devices that actually have some sort of tactile response. So for example, a device that would actually have haptic feedback, for example. We still have little bumps and little noises or vibrations our devices make, for example. And again, this is becoming a more and more competitive market all the time. And so in terms of the mobile marketing, it's very similar to traditional marketing, except geared toward that platform. And again, geared toward the idea of where somebody is going at a given point in time. And yes, people have voluntarily told us where they're at, whether they're using check-ins with Facebook or they have location services enabled. Most of the time we download an app. I'm thinking about things like apps that were location dependent, like Pokemon Go, or even if we're using Waze or Google Maps, we are giving up information all the time in exchange for services, and advertisers can know where we're going. So in terms of how you start a mobile marketing campaign, first of all, your site or your web presence needs to be accessible mobile in a mobile format, whether it's an app or a mobile website. You probably also want to make sure you tie into your social networks. And again, the same ad networks that are helping us target users at home can help us target them based on a more detailed profile, based on knowing more about the consumer's habit. For example, if my browsing history on my my Google Chrome is that I'm spending a lot of time on Toyota off-road sites and buying overlanding and camping equipment. And by my location data saying every weekend I seem to be going to a trail, all of a sudden Google knows better how to target advertising to me. And again, that gives us the ability to build more targeted campaigns. So how do we measure the effectiveness of it? Again, it comes down to what your own measures of success are. Ultimately, it's visits to your website and sales that most people care about. So in terms of location-based marketing, yeah, this is incredibly powerful stuff. And one of the things that nobody saw coming is how much we'd be using it just in our own towns and cities. Think about how many times in the last month of your life you've had to find something in your own town that you've never been to before, and you use Google Maps to do it. And again, we have all the reason in the world to tie into local advertising when we're trying to find something. And the idea of using smartphones as portals to get people not just with global advertising, but local advertising makes a lot of sense. Google Maps came out in 2005, the iPhone hit in 2007, and the Google Maps app changed everything, meaning all of a sudden we've got a way to track behavior and a way to more thoroughly target people. So if we look at where this is at, again, in terms of location-based marketing, we're just at the tip of the iceberg here, and I think we're going to see even more of this emerge. One of the other things that really also spurred this on, by the way, was the pandemic. Because people weren't traveling, they were staying in their local communities, they were going out to their local stores. Yeah, this took it to the next level. So again, if we look at some of the location-based platforms, all of these social networks, and especially Google, depending on what maps you're using. I know we've got Apple Maps as well, but it's still a much more popular system, for example. And so if you're using any kind of location services, you're giving up a lot of information to marketers. So we've got two methods that we do this. Essentially, we got geo-aware, which means maybe I'm driving somewhere and a GPS system is going to be able to say, hey, Tonkin is near Philadelphia. Or we could build a fence. We call it proximity marketing. This happens to me literally every day, by the way. When I walk into Planet Fitness, my Wi-Fi is prompted to connect to Planet Fitness's Wi-Fi, recognizes me as a user. And they're not just giving me Wi-Fi for the sake of allowing me to stream my Spotify while I'm working out. They also want to have access to information on my phone to better target me. And so how does this happen? How does a company know where you're at? GPS, Global Positioning System, is part of it, which is satellite based, but cell towers. By the way, if you don't know why a cell phone is called a cell phone, it's because cells are basically areas where a tower can hit people in a given radius. And when you go from one tower to the next, you're moving from one cell to the next. And so those also give up location data, as do Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi, for example, when you connect, you get a unique IP address that's location sensitive. You can pretty easily triangulate somebody's location. So why do marketers like this? Well, why wouldn't you like it? If you know somebody primarily dwells in the Northeast, you might be giving them ads for snowblowers. If somebody lives mainly in the Southwest, you're going to be targeting them with air conditioners. And you also have a great way. If somebody's in your store and they're using your local Wi-Fi, you can also see if they're making purchases somewhere else, depending on the tracking data you set up. And this goes back to the privacy aspects to what have we actually agreed to in the terms and services when we signed up. So all of these things tie together. Again, when you walk into a Starbucks or you walk into a Target or you walk into a Planet Fitness, they're giving you access to their Wi-Fi with the intent of monitoring where you're going, what you're doing, and how you're using it so they can sell your information to other people. And this ties into geosocial, local, mobile proximity, and in-store, as well as location-based. How do smartphones track us? Again, you can triangulate signals from one cell to the next in terms of what Wi-Fi networks you've connected to. There was an experiment about 2 years ago where one of the editors of Wired magazine decided to try to completely disappear, and he shut his cell phone off, and the trail that he had led to the point where he shut his cell phone off led to a series of CCD, public cameras and location tracking through other kinds of public means. For example, people had seen him, they had posted online. long story short, it's really hard to disappear. It took about 2 days for this guy to be found because our smartphones lead a trail and local search can take us from there. So how do we start a location-based marketing campaign? Again, know what your goal is. If you are going to geofence, if you're the Pittsburgh Pirates and you want to see how many people are coming to your games, offer some free Wi-Fi and also offer opportunities. In other words, sign up, get onto our free Wi-Fi, and give people a coupon for 50 cents off a soda at the concession stand if you use this. That's how you can tell if people are actually using this. And in terms of the location-aware mobile user demographic, we're talking about people who know about this technology and are comfortable with it. So we're probably talking people under the age of 40 for the most part. And you're going to measure what kind of response you get and tie it back to the intervention you made. Basic marketing, still using the tools that are available to you. And that was a very quick walk through the world of social, mobile, and local e-commerce. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to speaking with you.